They laughed the day she drove past the last plowed road, her old truck coughing white smoke into the frozen air, everything she owned rattling in the back. Even she laughed at herself for a moment, a thin, nervous sound, because moving into a cave at the edge of the Canadian Rockies sounded like the kind of story people told to warn kids what not to do with their lives. But laughter had followed her for years, and she had learned how to keep moving through it, the way you walk through falling snow without stopping to catch every flake on your tongue. Her name was Mara, and by the time she found the cave, she was already tired in a way sleep could not fix. The small rental in town had been sold, the new owner wanting more money than she could ever pay. The mill where she worked closed one gray Friday afternoon, and with it went the last sense of stability she had. Friends offered couches for a week or two, advice wrapped in concern, but no real solutions. When she mentioned the cave she'd discovered while hiking years before, the laughter came fast and loud. People told her winter would kill her. They said she was desperate, reckless, out of her mind. She nodded, smiled, and kept quiet, because desperation had already taught her that survival does not always look reasonable from the outside. The cave wasn't deep or dramatic like something from a movie. It was a wide, low opening tucked into a limestone face, hidden by scraggly pine and snow-heavy brush. Inside, the air was still and strangely calm, holding a steady cold that felt gentler than the biting wind outside. On her first night there, sitting on a borrowed camping mat with a single lantern flickering, Mara cried quietly. Not the kind of crying that makes noise, but the kind that shakes your chest while you press your hand over your mouth, afraid even the dark might judge you. She wasn't crying because she lived in a cave. She was crying because she didn't know if she could keep going, and because, despite everything, she still wanted to. She learned the cave the way you learn a new home. She noticed how the ceiling dipped lower toward the back, how the stone walls held the faint smell of damp earth, how the temperature barely changed from day to night. She built small routines to keep fear from settling in. Mornings meant hiking down to a nearby creek to collect water, careful not to slip on the ice. Afternoons were spent splitting fallen wood and dragging it back on a sled she'd found at a thrift store. Nights were the hardest. The darkness was deep, the silence heavy, broken only by the wind howling outside like something alive and angry. When winter truly arrived, it did not arrive gently. It slammed into the mountains with record-breaking cold, temperatures dropping lower than anyone could remember. News traveled slowly out where Mara lived, but even she heard the stories when she went into town once a week for supplies. Pipes bursting, furnaces failing, entire neighborhoods losing power. People huddled in community centers, wrapped in donated blankets, fear and exhaustion written on their faces. Each time someone saw her buying candles or dried food, they shook their heads. They asked if she was still living in that cave. They told her she was lucky to be alive. Some laughed, softer now, uncertain. What they didn't know was that while the world above ground froze and cracked, the cave stayed steady. The thick stone wrapped around her like a shield, blocking the worst of the wind. The small fire she built near the entrance warmed the space slowly, the heat sinking into the rock and staying there long after the flames died down. At night, wrapped in layers of blankets, listening to the storm rage outside, Mara felt something close to peace. For the first time in months, her teeth didn't chatter from fear or cold. Her body relaxed. She slept. The coldest week of winter was the one that changed everything. Temperatures dropped to levels that made headlines across Canada. Roads closed. Power lines snapped under the weight of ice. Search and rescue teams worked non-stop. One evening, as snow fell thick and heavy, Mara heard shouting near the mouth of the cave. Two men from town stumbled into view, faces red and panicked, their truck stranded on the unplowed road. They had been trying to hike back in the dark and were losing feeling in their hands. Without thinking, Mara waved them inside. She gave them hot tea, shared her food, showed them where to sit near the warmth of the stone. They stared around, stunned, their breath slowly calming as feeling returned to their fingers. One of them laughed, not mocking this time, but amazed. He said he thought she was crazy. He said he didn't understand how she had survived out here alone. Mara shrugged, embarrassed and tired. She told him she did what she had to do. Word spread quietly after that. When another family lost heat, someone mentioned the woman in the cave. When a power outage stretched from days into weeks, people remembered the place everyone had laughed at. Mara found herself guiding neighbors through snowstorms, showing them how to reach the cave safely. She didn't turn anyone away. The cave filled with low voices, shared meals, the strange comfort of humans pressed together against the cold. In that dark, stone shelter, people talked about their fears, their losses, their hopes for spring. Laughter returned, but it was different now. Softer, warmer. When winter finally loosened its grip, when the snow began to melt and sunlight reached the cave entrance again, people went back to their homes. Some hugged Mara before they left. Some thanked her through tears. A few apologized for laughing. She accepted it all quietly. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt like someone who had survived by listening to her instincts when nothing else made sense. Months later, standing outside the cave with a job lined up and a small place of her own waiting in town, Mara looked back one last time. The cave was still there, unchanged, patient as stone always is. She realized then that the coldest winter in history had not broken her. It had shown her something simple and powerful. Sometimes safety comes from the places everyone else dismisses. Sometimes strength looks like choosing to keep going when the world is laughing. And sometimes, the thing that saves you ends up saving others too.